Recording in progress.
Hey, everybody. Jordan, how are you?
How's it going? Everything good?
There we go. So we have Alex is here, Craig, Jordan, JP, Nick, Tom, and Zach. Good stuff. We can start in just a minute. Dan Kaplan has arrived.
Coach Bolger, how are we?
Good, sir. How are you?
Doing well.
You need to feed your brother a little bit. It looks like he's dropped another 20.
Yeah, he's down, man. He's down.
Holy cow.
He's got a big one, a big summer coming up. So I wouldn't expect that to change anytime soon.
It looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good. All right. Does anybody have any questions on what we did the other day? Anything that came up? I have recorded it. I have it on our YouTube channel. I'll send all those links out, and I'm actually going to update it on the website hopefully tomorrow. And then I'll send out a link to everybody. Also know, I think Tom Pickard, you had requested access to some of the workouts. I'm trying to figure out why that's not showing up on the website, but I'm going to dig into that tomorrow.
It's no big deal either way. I mean, I could come up with my own. I was just kind of cruising through one day at work, checking everything out.
Yeah, they're kind of cool. And no, I'm glad you did that, because so Google Sites changed, like they've updated it. It's totally different. And it's done something to some of the sharing of those links. So I've got to kind of go back and figure out what it did. I just haven't had time to really do it.
No worries.
But I will, because I mean, the workouts are nice because they're kind of based on getting in lacrosse shape. A lot of guys think you're going to get in shape to go out and do lacrosse. You're just going to go out and, run on a treadmill for 30 minutes or walk on a treadmill, and you're going to show up and you're going to be in shape. And there's a lot more to it, especially if the higher levels you get and even the lower levels, because the kids are going back and forth, and you've got to be, you got a good, strong core. You got to be able to turn and cut pretty good. JP Bennett's proven you can be slow and still do it at a high level, but you at least have to have a little bit of fitness. So, all right. So we are going to move on today. I want to try and get this done pretty quick because I know we've met a lot. We're actually going to move on, and I misspoke on the schedule. We are not going to be doing rule 5 tonight. We're going to do rule 6, which is technical fouls. And I like to start with the technical fouls because they're the fouls that actually they occur, kind of as part of playing the game. And they are, they're just, your ability to determine what technical fouls are occurring, and how you judge those technical fouls really can dictate the flow of the game. So we'll talk about technical fouls now. Personal fouls are, they're the safety fouls, and they're the big ones, and they have a big control on the game, and they're important, very important. But the technical fouls, you guys all coached and played, you get that referee that just comes in here and every tap on the back becomes a push. And, every time a guy's stick gets a little bit up on an arm, it's a hold. And every time a kid, moves his arm a little bit, it's a ward. And, they look for everything to be totally perfect and exact. And, pretty soon you got Coach Corrigan yelling, "You're ruining the game." You're just ruining the game. We want to be careful not to do that. Remember, we're trying to keep everything safe, fair, and fun. And this is really the fairness part, because with technical fouls, which are the fouls of a least serious nature. So here's a still photo, and from the photo, he's got a pretty good hold. The shaft of his pole is right across his shoulder and he's restricted. I can't really totally see what he's doing and what direction he's going in, but I would imagine that's probably a hold right there. And then the other one, pretty obvious, the kid's hands are on the other kid's back and he's pushing out. So you got to push. Okay. And because they're less serious, they either are adjudicated with a turnover, a change of possession, or a 30-second penalty. So, the fouls are less serious, but with that, they carry less of a penalty than, a big slash or an illegal body check or something like that. But, they're part of making sure that we call the game. Everybody can see my screen, right? You see my PowerPoint? I thought, all right, I like to make sure, because my students sometimes when we were doing this, I'd get 5 minutes to go in the meeting and they said, "Mr. Bulger, did you mean to be sharing a PowerPoint with us this whole time?" So, all right. A big thing about technical fouls, and we talk about kind of the principle of advantage, disadvantage. So most of our technical fouls really just either they create an advantage for a player, or they create they disadvantage a player. And how bad that advantage or disadvantage is, does the push there, obviously it's pushed and we're going to assume this kid had possession and he was running along nice and that kid's in his back and there's the ball's coming out, right? So very easy to determine he's disadvantaged because he got pushed in the back and he lost the ball, right? Here, okay, is this guy, is there an advantage really gained? He's got his stick here, on the far shoulder. Looks like he's holding, but this guy's in pretty good position to pick up a loose ball. We want to kind of work to make sure that, he should have a little bit of an advantage. If he can scoop that ball up and go, we don't want to stop the game because now we're going to disadvantage that player. So we're always kind of looking at advantage, disadvantage when you're looking at personal or most technical fouls. Okay. And with technical fouls, there's 3 ways that we adjudicate the foul. There's 3 different consequences. So if the technical foul happens while the ball is loose, or you can't determine who should have possession, you just award the possession to the team that was offended. They get the ball. That's all you do. If the offense is in possession, you can determine who has possession, and the defense commits the foul. Now you're going to have, a flag, and it's going to be a 30-second penalty. That's all it is. And then the third scenario is the offense has the ball and a player on the offense commits a foul. It's simply a turnover. So it's kind of the penalty fits the crime. And as you referee a little bit more, and especially you work with JP, who's on the call, or you work with me, you're kind of trying to make you make what you do fit the crime. So if there's a loose ball and a kid is pushed, he's pushed over the ball and he can't pick it up, giving him the ball and giving him 5 yards, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good result of that foul. Nobody got hurt. You now have the ball and you keep on going the way you were going. But if you had the ball and, like in the example with the push, and you lost the ball, well, it's fair to give you a man up for 30 seconds. So that's kind of how we do all this kind of, that's how these fouls are adjudicated. So, and then just a couple other things as we go through the fouls. When you have a foul during play, and I didn't really know how to say this, but you have a push, you have a hold, you have a interference or a moving, an illegal screen or a ward, particularly. You're going to look at those based on what advantage or disadvantage was created and what happened to the player that, maybe was disadvantaged a little bit by the foul. Did it really cause anything that you're going to stop play and award the ball or anything like that? Or did play continue? They didn't lose a scoring opportunity. They continued the possession. And that's all based on your judgment and using the principle of advantage and disadvantage. And as we get on the field, you'll learn, you'll start to really identify that. I'm sure most of you can, because you have a lot of experience, with lacrosse. So that's how we do that. The other kind of technical fouls are line fouls, anywhere where a line is involved. So offsides, a crease violation, a player leaving the box too early on a face-off. When it's clear that a player has violated that line, so it's offsides and they took a step over and jumped back. That's not, you can't really use the principle of advantage, disadvantage there, because everybody sees it. There's no question, right? He stepped over the line. He was offsides. For that moment, they had too many players forward, or that player was out of the box. Okay. There are some things we do on loose balls to prevent having to just stop play for those line fouls with play-ons. But for the most part, you've got to recognize those fouls. And then the third kind of technical fouls kind of fall into conduct, thing, either a behavioral, bad sportsmanship, or, something in the way, some kind of an illegal procedure that, you're using your judgment, or you're using a thing we call the ladder to kind of control the behavior in the game. All right. So these are kind of the three categories. So let's look at some of these fouls and exactly what they are. And again, I'm going to go quick because my assumption is everybody in the room has a pretty good experience. If I'm going too fast, or I'm not being clear, or you think I'm being contradictory, or you just have a question, please ask. And each one of these, we're going to show you the signal with as well. So we start with crease violations. Okay. So when an offensive player steps in the crease, which means they've either stepped on the line or they stepped completely into the crease, you have a crease violation. Okay. If it's a loose ball, you're generally going to call these on a loose ball, or if the offensive team has possession, and simply when you stop play, the signal is going to be, you're going to point down at the crease and you're going to yell crease, and you're going to award the ball to the other team, and you're going to keep on playing. Okay. Pretty simple crease violations. And then the other is goalkeeper interference. And like we said last week, there's two kinds of goalkeeper interference. There's a loose ball goalie interference, where there's a loose ball around a crease. The offensive player checks the goaltender's stick while it's inside the cylinder and the ball is loose. That's simply, we're just going to simply award possession to the goalkeeper. He'll have the protections of his crease and we'll move on. The second kind is if the keeper is in the crease but has possession and either the ball is checked out of his stick, so it creates a turnover, or he goes to throw his outlet pass and the natural throwing motion makes contact with an offensive player. That's going to be goalie interference, and the result is going to be a free clear for the defending team. Because we look at that kind of thing, it's a little harder to judge what the advantage or disadvantage was. So it's fair to put the ball up at midfield. So whenever there's possession, you're going to put the ball up at midfield and give them the free clear. If the ball is loose, you're just going to award it to the goalie. Okay. And the signal for any kind of interference is you just cross your hands. Interference on white, and we're going blue. Well, there it would be interference on white. We're going blue. And if it's a free clear, you're going to point up at the midfield and you're going to have the play move up there. All right. Any questions? There's that other signal. All right. Holding. So one of the interesting things in the rule book is there are places in our rule book that talk about legal holding and legal pushing. So there are times when pushing and holding is legal in certain ways. So a hold is legal if it's stick on stick, okay? Or, if you're bodying up a guy with possession or on a loose ball and you're within 5 yards of the loose ball or the player has possession, you can reach out with your hands and you can hold him and make him go around you. You can't use your stick to hold his body. You can't cause him to withhold the ball by pulling his stick up against his body. Okay. But you can take his stick and push it away. You can hold his stick in that way. So, so those are holding fouls. So you can kind of see two here where the blue player, he's got a nice piece of the chin strap of the helmet. Anytime you see that and you kind of see the head jerk back a little bit, that's going to be a hold. And then here, the player's coming around. He's kind of got it on two fronts. He's all the way around. I can't say if that arm there and that stick is holding yet, but certainly the fact that he's got a piece of the jersey up there is going to cause that hold. And so that's going to be a hold, and the signal simply it's holding. So same as football. Withholding, kind of where the advantage disadvantage comes in is, a guy has a good stick hold on a player, or a guy's, he's holding, and kind of at the end of the play, maybe if he gets a chunk of him with his stick, or, it becomes a hold. If the player works through that and it's released immediately, in most cases, you're gonna let that go. There's no real advantage or disadvantage created. If it started legal and then, as it becomes illegal, the offending player pulls away, or the offensive player is just strong enough to push through it real quick, and still has an opportunity to get to the goal or make a pass or whatever, and it doesn't create a disadvantage, you might hold a flag and you might hold that penalty. That's how we would use advantage, disadvantage. Okay, let's look at a couple of videos. Let's look at this one first. So go back, he gets the stick, and then wraps it around him and brings him to the ground. Is everybody able to see that video? That's a pretty easy hold. All right. This will never hopefully be your uniform again. Just to make that comment, that's the old uniform. And then here's a little bit more significant, and this becomes much, much more than just the initial hold. So he's coming in, gets wrapped up in a really, really good hold. And then he probably gets pushed and probably gets slashed a couple times. But the beginning of this one, you know, comes up, he makes contact. The first contact is illegal, kind of a legal check or a legal hold. But as the player turns, he turns into the stick and he gets held. And then, of course, the pure skill level of those players is revealed as they completely maul him. All right, so that's holding. All right, now we're going to talk about illegal offensive screening or the moving pick. Okay, so the rules of lacrosse require, if you're going to set a screen on a defensive player, you have to meet a couple conditions. Your feet have to be under your shoulders. Your stick has to be inside your body. Okay. And you have to be planted still at least by the moment before any contact is made. If you're not meeting those parameters and the defensive player makes contact to the point he's disadvantaged, you're going to have a moving screen. Okay. Within the rules of lacrosse, and you'll always hear, you know, coaches and parents yelling for moving picks, when the player goes to set the pick and slides and the other player goes around him, but there's no contact, even though his movement forced that player maybe to go a little wider and maybe lose a step on his player, it's not going to be called an illegal screen because you have to have contact. You have to have something that holds him up and picks him off. Okay. So that's what's very important to watch for on those screens. And it's becoming bigger and bigger in lacrosse. You know, you now have, you know, so many offenses that start out with the 2-man game behind, and it's just based on a lot of picks. And then you have a lot of motion offenses that even have double picks and guys setting a pick and then curling out and looking like they're going to get a feed and then setting a second pick on a dodger, you know. So it's really, when we get into mechanics, this is one of the things you really, really need to get keen and look on. And it's one of those things that if not called properly, it does ruin the game. You know, there's kind of an art to the pick game. We want to allow players to pick and get those types of natural advantages, but our job is to keep it fair. So I'm going to show you this film real quick, and then we're going to watch it a couple times. And I want you to tell me what you think. Okay. All right, let's watch it one more time. Anybody have anything there?
He didn't make contact with him, did he, Greg? Doesn't look like he made contact.
There was a little bit of contact. Okay, look at it one more time. So let me see if I can make it full screen. Go full screen, please. Okay, so I'm gonna try to scrub back. See if I open YouTube for you. Can you see it now? Can you see it now in full screen? The only thing I honestly really see is there's contact with the stick as he comes around, but I don't see any movement on the, to me, it's a pretty good pick. You know, it seemed like that was kind of ticky-tack. So that's really, to me, and JP, if you disagree with me, jump in. I thought that was a good pick. And the only reason I'm saying that is where I stole the video from, listed that in a folder of moving picks. But that was the only example of a moving pick. I was hoping to find a video that actually shows a guy not stopping or something like that. So did anybody see?
If anything, it was his own defensive player that actually created the illegal pick because he steps out and makes everybody move a little bit. I thought it was a good pick from the start.
Yeah, I thought it was a good play. Dan Kaplan, former great offensive coordinator. Would you be losing your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's there in plenty of time. The only thing that I see is he just kind of gets a little bit timid right before the contact is made. So maybe he's kind of shying away from it, which makes it look like he's moving a little bit. But I think he's there and set, and he's just kind of like bracing himself for the impact, which, seems a little ticky-tacky to me.
Yeah, I've seen much worse, on that, where you got a bigger guy coming really fast and they get scared and they actually turn into
Right.
him. Then, you clearly have to call that because you're stopping his progress. To me, under advantage, disadvantage, I didn't really see anything there. So that's really what we're looking for when we're looking, to judge those kind of screens. And then the illegal screen is you just take your one hand and you're just call out the screen. I have an illegal screen and you're going to award the ball. So, all right. All right, so conduct fouls. This is actually kind of out of order. So as the official, you're judging some kind of misconduct, and more times than not, it's going to be something that the coach does or says. And we'll talk later when we get to the section on penalty enforcement on a thing we use to kind of control behavior and unsportsmanlike behavior called the ladder. So basically what the ladder is you start, a warning. So for example, a coach, vehemently disagrees with something and he won't let it go. So the first thing is, coach, we're done. You need to stop now. If that doesn't work, then you would give a conduct foul. And the art of the conduct foul is to call the conduct foul when the team of that coach has possession. If you hope the timing works out, because as a coach, right, possession is everything. Losing possession is a pretty big deal to a coach, right? You can't score unless you have the ball. So we have these things called conduct fouls. Generally in high school, I push everybody to use it only on really coaches' behavior. You never want to use a conduct foul on player behavior. You never want to really call a conduct foul if a player questions your judgment, in a not so nice way. You want to go with the full unsportsmanlike for that. But the conduct fouls to me, they're a great tool to kind of control the game and to kind of give a coach the message, hey, we're crossing the line now and you need to stop or things are going to get worse, because the next step is, an unsportsmanlike penalty and a 1 minute full-time, man down for you. So that's what we use the conduct foul for. And it could be for a lot of things. Usually at that point, it's not really for bad language, but they might say something about where you went to school. JP always calls it, because people insult Del Castle. They'll say, well, this isn't Del Castle, and boom, he takes the ball away. He's very sensitive. So any questions on conduct fouls? We will talk a lot more on conduct when we're going to do a little bit on game management, and it's really a big part of game management. So interference, there's two interferences. Kind of if the ball is loose and a player, plays another player more than 5 yards from that loose ball, including pushing him out of the area, and so what would start out as a legal kind of body check or an illegal push or hold, but then either the ball moves more than 5 yards away or the player just, kind of blocks him all the way downfield. anything 5 yards away is when there's no possession is going to be interference, and it's simply going to be a loose ball technical foul. We're going to award possession. The other interference comes off ball play by the defense, particularly with possession. So, you know, you got a lot two guys banging on the crease, and you get the one kid who just constantly wants to push the offensive cutter kind of off his line. But, you know, he's pushing him to the point he's pushing him out of the play, or he's disadvantaging that player. Or you'll see it a lot where when a defender kind of comes back to the hoop, you know, or is recovering back to the crease, and they take a whack at the attackman's stick, and the stick ends up on the ground. That's an example of interference because it's a disadvantage. You know, that the kid shouldn't have to reach down and pick up his stick. And the offense can have interference too if they, you know, kind of as part of what they're doing especially in front of the goal. You know, they push a defender kind of off his line or out of the way or away from his player. That could be interference. Generally with interference, you'll hear the referee warn everybody, you know, keep it clean on the crease, knock it off on the crease if there's a lot of that going on. But if there's a clear disadvantage, it causes a player to, you know, end up on the ground. It causes a player to lose his stick. It causes a player to go in a crease, particularly if an offensive player is shoved into the crease off ball like that. You know, then that would be interference, because the disadvantage is now he's in the crease and you have to kill play. So that's interference. And again, the signal's just crossed hands. And here's a loose ball interference. And in this video, they're using the example of the play on. So the play on is something we use to kind of preserve an advantage. Okay, so if you have, in this case, we're going to have a loose ball interference more than 5 yards from the ball, but the team that should be getting the ball is going to very quickly pick it up and have an opportunity to score. So we don't want to we don't want to take away that opportunity. So we use a thing called a play on, where you raise your hand and you yell play on, and then assuming that player, you know, who you're preserving the advantage for, scoops up the ball and moves, you just put your hand down and say play on off. If you can't pick up the ball or something happens, you know, you kill it, and then you're going to adjudicate the loose ball foul properly. And the play on I'm talking about is only used when the ball is loose. Okay, and they need to be very quick. You know, play on is not, you know, to give them another 20 seconds to bat the ball around on the ground and see if somebody picks it up. It's to preserve an immediate advantage. And we'll review that more in mechanics, and we'll review that a lot in penalty enforcement. So in this one, so in this, there was a pass coming across the middle, and the white player just knocks the dark player down. Check one more time. So as the ball was loose, it's more than 5 yards away from the ball. He knocks him over. You will hear the referee yell play on, and then the dark team does end up recovering the ball. So kind of no harm, no foul. So there's the foul, play on. And then they scoop the ball up and we keep playing. And that's exactly what we want to do in those cases, right? Even though there was a foul, there was no real disadvantage, because the team that, the team that was fouled ended up with the ball. They had plenty of space, you know, it didn't pick it up and get it checked right out or anything like that. That's interference. All right, so offsides, we went over this the other night. You know, it's when you have the wrong number of players forward. So you either have 8 defensive players, including the goalie, or you have 7 or more offensive players in one area of the field at the same time. And that does also, when you're kind of counting offsides, it includes a player in the box. So the player in a penalty box would always be kind of player number 1 when you count. Offsides is one of the last things you really get pretty good at catching, unless it's obvious. You know, you look up and everybody's screaming, he's offsides, he's offsides. You're kind of learning to get in the flow of the game from the view we have. It takes a little while. You all who've played for a long time, particularly if you're a midfielder, it becomes pretty easy to pick up because you're really, to me, you really only have to count three, especially offensive. You have to count 3 players because you already know they have 3 players down there. So you're just counting, the midfielders as they go off and they sub, and it makes it easier to find it, but it takes it a while. So offsides, again, if it's the offense who goes offsides, it's simply a turnover. If the defense goes offsides, it's a flag down and a 30-second penalty. If the ball is loose, you're just going to award the penalty. You're going to give the team that was offsides. You're going to give them a couple breaths to get back on side, as long as that offsides player doesn't somehow get involved in the play, particularly on a restart. Okay, offsides. And then to go with offsides too, and it's actually, we're going to talk about it in a minute there. It often is confused with or the same as too many men. But because of the way we count, sometimes we don't really know it's too many men. We just know it is offsides. So pushing, just like holding, there is legal pushing. You can push from the front, you can push from the side. You just can't push from the back. So when you get a foul for pushing, it's going to be in the back. And again, we're using advantage, disadvantage. Okay, and I'll show you a couple of videos in a minute. The one thing that I can't find are like examples where you just kind of pass on a push. So players he's working his way down. Let's say he's working down the alley. He's gonna take the ball to X, and the defender's kind of running hip to hip, but he might be a step behind. And he gives him that little jack in the back just to let him know he's there. But he doesn't lose the ball. He doesn't take him a scoring opportunity away or anything like that. Usually we pass on those the first time. And then the second time, we might say, get off his back. And then if he shoves him again, you're going to call it because, you have to kind of keep control of the game. And if that attackman thinks you're just going to let that guy jack him in the back all day, eventually he's going to turn around, he's going to hit him. And then you got a bigger problem. But, pushing, when you call it, it's where, again, it creates a disadvantage to one team. So let's look at a couple different pushes. These are both pretty run-of-the-mill, simple push. The first one's with possession. Okay. So as the player's cutting, the defender puts his hands on his back. And he pushes. The other big penalty is we never wore short white socks with white pants. So that's an illegal procedure on the referee. Okay, pretty clear push. You got to call that. He lost the ball. In that case, if and just hypothetically, he turns and he might be looking to feed. If he got pushed like that and he was going away from the goal and he kind of kept the ball and he rolled over, depending on the game, you might pass. It would kind of be up to the tenor of the game. But there he lost the ball, clearly was knocked down, and taken out of the play. All right, and then here's a loose ball push. Pretty simple. you know, two guys going for the ball. You know, the right player was about to go get it, and he just gets railroaded from behind. And there was nothing vicious, nothing terrible, nothing nasty. You know, he was just pushed. And there's really no out on that, you know. So those are pushes. All right, stalling. So in the nice thing is in a real college rules games now, you really don't have stalling because you have a shot clock. So in high school ball, you still have stalling. And the kind of the penalty for stalling or how we handle stalling is by forcing the one team to get it in the box and keep it in there. So stalling is basically defined as an instance where you're not working anything to get to the goal. And there's no real measure for it that tells you. There's some things that tell you where you can and can't call stalling. So if a player is in the box and he's being played, okay, he can't be called for stalling. You know, as long as the defense is playing him, or if the defense is playing, he can't be. He can't be called for stalling. If he goes behind the cage and just stands there, he can be called for stalling. You can't just go behind, and the defensive player shouldn't be forced to go behind. So he can clearly be called for stalling if a player just goes, or two players go back there and they throw the ball around without any attempt to initiate anything in front of the goal. Outside the box, the defense they don't have to go out and play them. If you're just keeping the ball outside the box for long periods of time, you can be called for stalling. And again, the penalty for stalling is to get it in and keep it in. And then, of course, if you can't, you're going to end up turning the ball over. Any questions about stalling?
How long do they have to get it in after you say get it in?
They have 10 seconds. If they're outside the box, they have 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Yeah. And generally, if you're going to call stalling, and when we do mechanics and you get a little deeper into it, usually you talk about that in your pregame, how you're going to handle that. There's a couple of unwritten rules about calling stalling with the get it in, keep it in. You don't want to trap a team. So you don't want to, just as a guy is coming into the box, you don't want to say, keep it in, and the kid curls around and steps out of the box. And now, he's committed the infraction. It's going to be a turnover. Generally with stalling, as a crew, we'll figure out and say, okay, we're going to call it next time around. When they get the ball at X, then we'll put it in. And that gives everybody, on the offense, the opportunity to know they now have to keep it in. If they are refusing to take it behind because they don't want to get called, you look for the next opportunity where they're outside the box and, maybe moving away, or, they're deep inside the box and there's no question. But for the most part, you don't want to get so involved that you trap a team into a turnover. And then, you also, and you guys will be pretty good at this, to call stalling, you have to kind of understand what is the defense trying to do. If you go down to, on offense and all of a sudden the team popped into a zone, and you can't really get inside to get an opportunity, and that's your offense. It might take you a minute and a half to kind of figure out how to break into that zone. And the other thing too, in most zones, they're not going to play you in the box. So you could just stand inside the box above the goal. So you have to be very careful with stalling. You want to keep the game moving. You don't want to give a team an opportunity to just sit on the clock, but you also don't want to disadvantage them to the point you're going to force turnovers. then you're too involved. All right. And then, let's see. So warding off. So it's amazing when you referee, you come to find out that every team has at least one player named Ward, because there's a dad in the stands who just yells that kid's name the entire game. So basically warding is, well, let's talk about what an offensive player can do, right? By the rules, an offensive player has the right to protect his stick and protect himself with his free hand. So he can hold his free hand out while he's cradling and protect himself. Okay. That's not warding. Okay. If a player, gets a stick check in under his arms, okay, he's got two hands, he lets go of one and it pulls the other arm up. Okay. And the defensive player's kind of got his arm up in the air like that for a second. That's not warding, right? He has the right to get his hand back onto the stick as long as he doesn't, hold the stick or restrict the other player's movement of the stick. So when you have warding, it's when that motion with the arm actually pushes the stick away and creates an advantage by doing that, not just protecting yourself. It doesn't happen as often as that dad in the stands wants you to think. It doesn't happen when, like in this case, I mean, the still photo looks like maybe that kid's warding, but for all you know, he was protecting himself and that player has pushed his arm in, right? Which wouldn't be warding. Now, if he got his arm in and then the kid pushed out, now you would have warding. The one thing I will tell you about warding is don't try to call warding from 40 or 50 yards away. Be up close and be very consistent with it. Generally, as you get more experienced, you'll find, you might find 4 or 5 wards in a season, and they're usually pretty obvious. So, and then of course, the penalty for warding off, if the player who wards off has possession, it's going to be a loss of possession. You do see it sometimes on a ground ball, where a player's going to scoop a ball and he puts his other hand out and pushes the kid away. And then that could either be called warding or procedure, playing with his free hand. And then you would just award the ball. Okay. Any questions about warding? Okay. And again, yes, contact is required for a ward. So just holding your hand out is not going to be a ward. I think we're going to have a couple of videos. So let's look at this in full speed. So did anybody have a ward in full speed? Yes, no. Show it one more time.
It's a bit hard to tell, a little bit grainy.
Well, the video's grainy and the angle's bad and the kids are moving. Okay. I'll be honest, from that view, I didn't have a ward.
Yeah, it looked like
I had the
push.
kids switch hands and kind of protect. Okay. Now let's slow it down.
Yeah, I would call push on the defender.
Okay. You see how when he came back, he pushed his stick out of the way? I mean, you didn't see that at first. And then yes, you have the flag down push at the end. But if you call that a ward, the flag down push at the end doesn't really ever happen. Okay. So it shows you, to me, that shows you how hard it can be called warding sometimes, because it happens so fast. And then you've got to determine how much of an advantage was really gained when he came back and hit that kid's stick. Everybody's moving. Did he really have you got to see what happens at the end. His only choice is to push. But, did that little bit of a ward slow the kid down enough to get him behind and cause the push? And that's where you have to kind of apply advantage, disadvantage. And again, it's tough to see, just on a video on your own monitor, much less over Zoom. And then these are never really, I mean, hopefully as a referee, you're not looking at play from that angle. You're going to be in a little bit different position than on the sideline, 30 yards away from the play. So, wording. All right, withholding the ball from play. So withholding is lying on the ball, clamping the ball without picking it up, or thumbing the ball. And the other one that's not there is actually chesting, which you'll see often when a kid scoops up a ground ball or tries to run through three guys. All of a sudden he's surrounded, and as he turns, he holds the ball to his chest. That would be withholding. The most likely that you're going to have is clamping the ball down and not picking it up. To me, is probably the biggest withholding. 9 times out of 10, if they're lying on the ball, why are they lying on the ball? Why do you think they're lying on the ball?
They were
So
pushed.
They were
pushed.
okay. If a guy is face down laying on a ball, more often than not, hopefully somebody can tell you he was pushed on the ball, because that's kind of a bad deal to, give the ball back to a team that just pushed a kid on the ball. But you do have situations where you have a loose ball, a kid falls down, and ends up inadvertently on top of the ball. That would be withholding. Thumbing the ball would be withholding. Sometimes it's very hard to see, but you do see it once in a while. So that's withholding, and it's just the gator. That's withholding. He's withholding it. You see it a lot on the face-off now because you're supposed to pull the ball out in one smooth motion from the time they get the clamp.
So Greg,
Yep.
using your fingers to grab a face-off, that's the same thing as withholding.
It is different. Okay, and that's a good question. So if on the face-off, one of the face-off players grabs the ball and directs it, that's actually an unsportsmanlike conduct 1 minute. It's not withholding. Okay. That was your question, right?
Grabbing it with your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, they take and, it should go away by losing the motorcycle grip, but they would grab it and kind of settle it and then scoop it up. And that would be the same thing. It's not a penalty if you're doing a face-off and your gloved hand touches the ball. That's not a penalty or anything. And what was the other one? It's never, like if it inadvertently hits your hand. So, all right. So the last part of technical fouls is kind of the effective use of technical fouls leads to a safer game. So we talked about advantage, disadvantage. And now I want to talk a little bit about, how we use these to kind of keep things under control. In a good game where you don't have a lot of really, really rough, nasty, dirty stuff, or not super, illegal hits and slashes and things. If you're calling technical fouls properly, you're gonna hopefully prevent those kind of fouls from escalating. You're gonna reduce the frustration players have. So by properly calling technical fouls in a game and doing it consistently among your whole crew, you build trust. You build trust with the coaches. You build trust with the players that those players will, that you're going to make those calls, that you're in it to keep it fair. If you're calling all, one side's getting all the pushes, or one, you're passing on a lot of stuff, the players lose trust in you, the coaches lose trust in you. And then it starts to escalate, and that's where the frustration comes. They feel it's not fair. You're not taking care of things you're supposed to take care of. And then they start to take matters in their own hands. And that's when you start to get really chippy play, and you start to get a lot of dirty stuff, and you'll get some bigger hits and things like that are illegal. So, the goal is to use those technical fouls in such a way that you're keeping the game fair, and you're keeping a lid on the frustration that can occur. So does that make sense? And then the last one is illegal procedure. And basically this is kind of the kitchen sink. Any action of a technical nature not in conformity with the rules. So if you were to go through the rule book, and hopefully I have them for you on Friday, illegal procedure is illegal substitutions, losing required equipment, playing without your stick, having too many men on the field at one time, delaying a substitution. All the way down to things like improper uniform, not wearing a mouthpiece is technically illegal procedure. So it's a whole list of things, and basically it's anything that generally creates a disadvantage or an advantage, or it's just a clear violation of the rules, and the game maybe has to be stopped, and whatever's going on has to be fixed, so you messed up the flow of the game, and that's illegal procedure. And illegal procedure is always technical fouls, and it really just depends on possession, how you're going to award the ball from an illegal procedure. Any questions?
Nope.
So I guess the next thing we'll meet on Saturday. We'll start again. I guess you were in the locker room the other time with Fu, right? So we'll start there. We'll do a little chalk talk. We're going to go over our mechanics, which is how we move on the field and how we make sure that we're working together as a team and that we're in position to properly call the game. And we'll discuss a lot how important mechanics are to protecting the players and being in the right position, especially to make those big safety calls. All right. So if there are no questions, I'll be sending out the links tomorrow for the YouTube stuff. If you want to rewatch anything, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email me. And
There's supposed to be a big blizzard Saturday. Can you email us?
Yeah.
Cancel.
So no, that's a good question. I've heard anything from 1 to 1,000 inches. So, but yeah, they'll make that call. Bryn at the DLOA will make that call, hopefully at a reasonable time. And as soon as I find out, I will send everybody an email. And I'll probably, try to, if I'm near a computer and I can capture all your phone numbers, I would send a text as well. The other thing you can do is check. Shit, I don't have my phone down here. If you're on Instagram, if you follow DLL Lacrosse, Delaware Lacrosse League, he usually posts that stuff on Instagram. You could also follow the Chase Fieldhouse. I think that would give you an indication. But I think as soon as a call is made, Bryn would tell us, and I would put you right on tops on the list.
Yeah, they start girls' games at 8 a.m, so
Yeah.
they'll probably, if they're doing anything, they'll probably do that early.
Yeah, generally, they're not related to a school or a park or anything like that. So, unless it gets really bad and really dangerous, he probably won't call it. And it does seem, at least what I looked at before, like we might be in the clear by Saturday evening. think it's going to be kind of bad overnight tomorrow and into the early parts of the morning. But it looks like it's not going to be as bad as they were talking in the beginning of the week. Anything else? All right, I'll see you guys. O'Connor, stick around for a minute. I'll see you guys on Saturday then. Have a good rest of your night.
Cool. See you, Bulger.
See you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got one quick question, too, if,
Go ahead,
that's
Alex.
okay, wait. Yeah, so for Saturday, I can actually make it now, so I'm not sure if I have the correct uniform and whatnot. Are you bringing extras or what's the
Yeah,
expectation there?
Yeah. So I'll send it when I email the links tomorrow. I should have mentioned. I wish you would have asked this whenever he was in here. Just if you can wear a pair of black shorts. Somebody also asked me about gym shorts. For this, I don't care. So just wear. Hopefully you got either black pants or black shorts. We're indoors, so you can wear shorts. And then I'll have some striped shirts, and we'll have some flags there for you, and I have some extra whistles. If you have a whistle like a Fox 40 whistle that you use from coaching, bring that. It's always good. But my whole goal here was not to force you guys to go out and buy a bunch of stuff, to take the training. So we'll make sure you have what you need to get through the mechanics part, and then the 2 weeks of games that are coming up.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Have a good night.
You too. See you guys later.
Have a good night.
So Connor, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. What's your availability tomorrow to talk? Because I got to get on another call.
Let me check. I got class from 8:30 to 9:30, and then I'm free until 11:30.
Okay. Why don't you give me a call? Call me a little bit after 10, because I teach one class, and that'll end tomorrow at like 10:10.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, and then we can talk and make sure we're caught up and you're ready to roll.
Yeah, the only thing I have is just like just because I'm at college and like with our season going on, like it's just stuff with that.
Yep.
But yeah, that's really my only main concerns.
Yeah. We'll and we'll work through that. I mean, we did with Robbie. So
Okay.
And we'll get you started. And it'll be good to go. But yeah, just give me a shout tomorrow. Make sure we're on the same page. I know you missed the last class, so that you'll get the link for that. You can just watch that.
Okay.
Most of this stuff, the play part will come pretty simple. The important stuff for all of y'all that have played and been around the game a lot is just the mechanics part, learning how to do the officiating.
Yeah.
You have a pretty good idea of calling fouls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just comes down to learning how to actually operate on the field, and then also changing your perspective a little bit. As a player, you have one perspective on the game.
Yeah.
And as a referee, you're looking at both sides of the story and coming up with the right decision. So, All right.
All right. Well, I'll call you tomorrow.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. You have a good night.
You too. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.